This is Toledo Symphony Lab, a behind-the-scenes look at the world of classical music from WGTE Public Media and your Toledo Symphony. I'm Brad Cresswell, and joining me in the studio today are the Toledo Symphony's music director, Alain Trudel. We also have the TSO president and CEO, Zach Vassar, and principal second violin and artistic administrator, Merwin Sue. Welcome to you three gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good to have you here in the studio. We're going to talk a little bit about a concert that's happening on Friday and Saturday. It's April 14th and 15th, 8 o'clock p.m. at the Toledo Museum of Art Peristyle. This is a program that is really interesting, and it has two really powerhouse pieces on it. The Piano Concerto No. 1 by Piotr Tchaikovsky and the Symphony No. 5 by Dimitri Shostakovich. Now, the piano soloist is Jon Kimura Parker, and I'm going to talk with him in a little bit. And we'll have our questions for him, and we'll talk about him. But before we do all that, I want to get to Shostakovich, because we have the conductor right here in the studio, Alain Trudel.
Hello.
I don't know if I have a sound effect for Shostakovich.
I think it's whatever Alain just did.
Yeah, something like that.
Because that kind of is appropriate for the weight of this piece.
I do have this.
That is not right. No.
Is that right for Shostakovich?
No.
It should be like a woo,
Okay.
like scary music.
It's not scary. It's just it's eerie and intense.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
let's talk about the Symphony No. 5 in D minor by Piotr Tchaikovsky, by Dimitri Shostakovich. I almost said Piotr Shostakovich.
I know.
That would be a great name.
So
for
which piece are we talking about?
Okay,
Very
let's talk about Shostakovich, now that we're all on the same page, right? I'm going to turn it over to you, Alain. Give us a little intro, like if you were talking one-on-one with somebody who had never heard the music of Dimitri Shostakovich, what would you say?
I would say that, well, since Beethoven, there hasn't been a composer that talks directly, frankly, without any intermediate from one person to another, directly to you, from him to you. And if I'd have to start a young teenager on symphony music, like how they would like symphony music, I would put that piece, and they'd be hooked for life.
Well,
This is one of the greatest symphonies ever, and it's Shostakovich addictive. For me, it's after Mahler and Beethoven is my favorite composer.
Well, I mean, that's been evidenced by some of the music that you have written yourself that has been influenced a little bit by Shostakovich. Let's talk about Shostakovich, the person, first of all, because this was an astonishing talent, and the music that he wrote may not be as well known as, Mozart and Beethoven and all that, but it is fantastic and a whole new world to anybody who is not familiar with. And this is a great introduction to Shostakovich.
Oh, yeah. It's the Fifth Symphony is the best introduction you could have to Shostakovich. So Shostakovich, incredible talent as a composer, of course. There are different periods of his life and the compositions, they go with those periods. For example, until the Fourth Symphony, until Lady Macbeth, his opera, Lady Macbeth of the Minsk district, this is one period. And this is the period of we almost want to say the real Shostakovich, because he was, nobody was controlling him. And I'll elaborate on it a little bit. So you have to imagine something. You go to the conservatory, or you go to a school, whatever school you are, and your final paper on your concours or on your exam, was his first symphony. That was his test piece. That was the piece he wrote for the end of his studies.
Yeah.
Well, you have to think about it. 100 years later, it has not been altered by one note, and it's still in the standard repertoire.
Yeah.
So and it's not the typical First Symphony. It's very elaborate and has influences everywhere. I mean, one of the reasons I think I love Shostakovich so much is that it's so human. Yeah, it had so much suffering, and he was born in a time where everything changed. And they went from from being from Russia to the Soviet Union. and having all these rules, all these things. And he felt he was free to compose. So he composed that fourth symphony. Is unbelievable, but it's not the first thing you should listen to. So, and then he writes this opera, Lady Macbeth, in 1936. And then the newspaper, which is called the Pravda means the truth.
Yeah, right.
So, which you know, of course, but and really destroys it. Said, this is music for the elite. This is not music for the people. Because now we're really heavy into Stalin. So the Pravda destroys his opera, Lady Macbeth, because, you know, it has is the story of a prostitute, right? So it's something that is, it's not for the people, and but you know, opera, there's all kinds of story in opera, and they're all things that extrapolate, right? So, but it was not accepted, and especially from the party and from the people in power. So basically what they had were people judging composers, judging artists, judging writers, judging everybody. All the people were judging that were friends of the party, but there were the least talented people of the country that formed this committee and that decided what was good, what was not good, and they were like doing personal vendettas and things like that. But the problem with that is it's not like if you have a bad review in the paper now. If you have a bad review, I mean, you know, it's really bad, but you get over it, you know. But for him, it's like it's dangerous for his life.
Right.
So we have to think that he lived in another era and another kind of regime.
Put it in context.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he went from creating effervescence, and all of a sudden to be a pariah. That's what you say, right?
Yeah.
A pariah, and not having concerts, nothing the entire year, and he had to find a way out of it. That's when he writes this Fifth Symphony, which basically he writes pretty much what he wants, but he finishes with this ending, which is basically in D major for about 5 minutes, if you do the right tempo, because some people, which I will not reveal now, because I know there are different tempos that people do in this, but this ending is basically pam 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 pam. It's like the opening of the fourth movement of Beethoven's Fifth, right?
Yeah.
And it's like a hammer, always getting there, like happy music. I agree. Let me back in. I agree with everything you say. That's great. And finally, after he did that symphony, he became very ironic, right? And everybody said, yes, this is what he can do. He's a composer of the people now. And then the doors open again. And then, of course, the war. Yeah. So he gets into Second World War, and he wants to be, you have to think Shostakovich is a pretty frail person, like physically, but he wanted to fight in the war. Yeah. And everybody said, don't fight, you're a national treasure. and he went on top of the conservatory in, it wasn't St. Petersburg then, it wasn't Leningrad, it was Stalingrad, right? Mm-hmm. By then. And he's on the roof trying to help the firefighters and stuff like that. They said, you go back there. So he writes this is the other symphony, which should be the second one that people hear from Shostakovich, the seventh. Because there's a set of war symphonies, 7, 8, 9. And that one is really well known because it was smuggled by microfilm in the U.S. and it was played in the U.S. It was played in Philadelphia. It was played, and the premiere was here, and then it was played there, and it became kind of how do you say, a cry of relevant for everybody that's for the entire world. So it was on the 8th is about atrocities of the war, and the 9th symphony that he wrote. So Stalin said, "You're gonna write your 9th symphony." He's thinking Beethoven is to the glory of this, and he writes this chamber music piece with almost no brass, and so he went into this period, and then we enter a period where he writes his name everywhere. So the affirmation of self. His name is Dimitri Shostakovich, so D for Dimitri, and SCH. So it's like when you hear music by Bach, B flat, A, CH. So those are the German notes,
notes, yeah.
So S in German is E flat, D is D. D is D, E flat is S, C, and H is B natural. So pa 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 pa. And when you get to the 10th symphony and the 8th string quartet, it's just becoming like assertion that within it's a little bit everywhere. But the other thing is that he had to live almost a secret life for what he really thought. You could never really say what you were really thinking because you'd be sent to a gulag. They sent you all expenses paid into this beautiful vacation.
Wow.
So, like, even for example, in the 10th Symphony, he had this a student that he had fallen in love with, and he wrote his name with different musical. Unfortunately, it was not. How do you say mutual? so it stayed like that. But
she didn't reciprocate his feelings.
Yeah. Probably the 10th. I'm going to change my mind. It's going to be the 5th first, then the 10th, then the 2nd. You should listen to.
I would support that.
Yeah, and then you go into a period where it gets darker and darker until the 14th, and then the 15th is a retrospective of symphonic repertoire. So, but the 5th has all these codes already. The 5th is the one that got him back to come to being accepted, and that. Not launch, but relaunch the rest of his career, so he was able to be played. And there's all kinds of quotes in it because it talks. There's a big Carmen quote in it, right? L'amour, l'amour, in it, and you have to think about it because it's right after the opera that talks about Lady Macbeth, and then he puts that in it. So it's basically kind of how do you say when you do this?
Thumbing his nose.
Thumbing his nose at the authorities, but at the same time he knows he's trying to get away with it by this big finale. So there's so much psychological things that go into it, but at the same time there's so much just grit, human grit, getting through, being relentless and being resourceful and in face of adversity.
So much information and so many interesting stories. You guys got all that?
Yeah, I've been taking notes. Can we talk about the slow movement? It's one of the most stirring parts of the symphony, but I'm told in the first performance, people are just openly weeping. The folk music that's in that.
Made a connection, definitely.
Well, you have to think, right, is that Shostakovich was feeling this way, but he wasn't the only one. It's like, you take melodies they know and you change them. You harmonize them in a way. I mean, it's very, very poignant. It's very powerful, and not only powerful, but in the middle of those melodies, all of a sudden the basses go, and you really feel like it's like a stab,
with their instruments.
Yeah, with yeah. So it's like a very, very slow version of Psycho.
Yeah, right.
So,
right.
But right in the middle of those melodies that are going. He connected with the people. He connects with us. It's like, really, for me, the only composer I can compare humanly with is Beethoven, because it connects all your hopes, all your despair, everything. You connect as much in Shostakovich, and sometimes more, because it's a language we know a little bit more, and the emotions are more like fleur de peau.
Your heart's on the sleeve.
Yeah,
right there.
Yeah, so that really speaks to you at the first degree, even. It's like, oh wow.
Yeah.
So that's. And a movement like that, then he really he went as far as he could with the despair. So that's why he wrote that fourth movement. That was a celebration. And I can't remember exactly the quote. Maybe you guys remember. It's a humble artist comment. Do you remember what it is?
That appears on Symphony Lab, or
no? No, it's an artist's just response to criticism, creative criticism.
Or just criticism.
Yeah.
So that's the
yes, an artist's creative response to just criticism.
That's the subtitle of the symphony.
Nice.
Well, it's I think one of the things that you said that's so important is that I think and definitely since Beethoven, and when you think about great composers like Bach or Mozart, a lot of times there's almost a deification of those composers. There's nothing like that with Shostakovich. Shostakovich is not superhuman. He's not a god. He is incredibly human, and that's so important. And it's very much a person speaking to a person with frailties, and who's made mistakes, and who is, desperately seeking connection. And for me, he's the composer that I most strongly empathize with. And and it was a little bit almost too on the nose what Alain said about, well, if you want to get a teenager hooked forever, and when I first discovered Shostakovich, I was in my mid-teens, and that was really the first time that I thought of becoming a career musician.
Wow.
So it's absolutely, I would 100% agree with that.
Totally. What is your experience, Zach? Because you mentioned that you were turned on to Shostakovich as a teenager.
My dad had the famous Bernstein New York recording, which is hilariously recorded in Boston for some reason, late 50s, and he would talk about that as like a very pivotal part of the Cold War, that this became a modern classic, and it had to be performed by a New York orchestra, right? And then there were pictures, of course, of Bernstein taking the Philharmonic to Soviet Union and playing Shostakovich's music, which was always odd that an American orchestra would have to go there to play the local tunes. So that itself was fascinating to me. But it honestly was a mid-teens discovery for me as well. And I remember I would try to listen to the Fifth Symphony, and there was something about the very opening notes, which are very jarring. Ba-bee, ba-ba, and you're just it's kind of like Beethoven's Fifth. It doesn't quite it arrests you, but you don't know where it's going, and then it tells a story. And I think once I was able to settle in, kind of buckle in, it was like watching a movie in my mind. It flattened you.
Well, music by Shostakovich kind of has lots of different meanings. It depends on who's listening to it,
and where you are in your life. I mean, there have been points when I've listened to this symphony or the 10th, and had very different reactions to it. Different recordings take you in different places. There are a lot of interpretive points for this symphony in particular. Tempo markings, especially in the fourth movement, are controversial. And
if only we could get a video of that, Elaine. Your reaction video.
Is the truth.
Yes.
So, but I guess if I can tie this for a moment over to the other work on this concert with the first piano concerto of Tchaikovsky, Van Cliburn, around the same time that Bernstein's making this famous recording with New York, he was also winning the Tchaikovsky competition on Russian soil, and having another Cold War thaw with Russian music and American musicians. So you have to kind of unscramble that point in a very critical part of world history, and the role that music was able to make in brokering a little bit of cultural peace and exchange.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very good point.
Well, Cliburn, I'm going to say something that might sound too big, but if you put yourself in the shoes of the regular Soviet person at the time, which you have to think that art and music especially is so an integral part of their being. I mean, Cliburn winning this is almost as big as walking on the moon first. It's like, for the just a regular person, I mean, we think, no, it's just playing the piano, but the effect of it, and having the symphonies doing that, I think it's more the human aspect of having the symphonies played by American orchestra, the microfilm of the seven. But that was before the Cold War.
Right.
So that there was a bit of leftover. There was already a relationship existing with Shostakovich, especially within Philadelphia. And like the best recording of the cello concerto, Violin Concerto of Philadelphia, and with Rostropovich, and also Oyster. Oh my God,
that's an amazing. That's a life-changing recording for me.
Can we talk about Shostakovich's endings? You mentioned, the symphonies that people should listen to, and I particularly like the Sixth Symphony, Symphony Number 6. And Shostakovich has kind of like this Berlioz thing going on, where he occasionally goes off the rails, with his music. Sometimes it's satire, sometimes it's just, I think it's just for the sake of following the notes where they take you.
I think it's a big influence from Mahler, actually, because it's the irony on it. Actually, is a huge Mahler fan. Shostakovich, like his goal was, to write a symphony like Mahler would write. And
I'm a little remiss here. How many times do you say Mahler?
Twice.
Okay.
I only said
Thank you,
Mahler
Brad.
twice.
There's another one. It's going to be like Macbeth, is the name we can't say in the theater or in the
Otherwise, we
studio.
have a Pavlovian response.
Yes, exactly.
So
You were saying.
yes. What was I saying? No. So we're talking about those movements. Like in Mahler, you hear like bands coming in, like marching band coming in, and it has a particular. If you know a little bit the life of Mahler in his youth, and it's not necessarily something that's very positive. There's a little bit of trauma, family trauma around it. And Shostakovich, sometimes you hear this very supposedly folksy, happy music. But it has a special meaning, and like you said, like Zach said, it's like it depends, who you are when you are, at what point in your life you are, and again that brings us back to Beethoven, because Beethoven speaks to you in the way you need to be spoken to, and that's something very special. But I would say, and that's the reason I think why I personally like Mahler and Beethoven, Shostakovich the most. Sorry. It's because of their profound humanity.
Yeah, just amazing. Well, let's talk a little bit about Tchaikovsky, because we're going to talk with Jon Kimura Parker, who's the piano soloist for the Tchaik I piano concerto. This is something that everybody knows. And the pianist, I love the way that it starts with the pianist just playing those chords, boom, 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 just over and over. That part I can play. The other stuff is a little more difficult. But the melody is in the orchestra, right? And when we were talking about, like, the Mendelssohn violin concerto, for instance, it had kind of a novel entrance. The piano concerto of Tchaikovsky has kind of a novel entrance as well, in that the spotlight is on the orchestra to begin with, and then it translates into the piano. You want to take the lead on this, Elaine, because you're going to be on the podium. So let's talk about the piano concerto in particular.
Well, what I found very interesting. It's very technical. I'm going to say it, and you do what you want with it. But it's very interesting that it starts in the minor, the relative of the piece. The piece that it starts in D flat, but we're gonna fa re do si yam pam pam, and the piece is na da di da di.
Right.
So that's also kind of interesting to start that way. The big intro, you're gonna you're thinking this is going to be very, very dramatic, and the oh la 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 la, and then boom, and then all these arpeggios and the hit and the one, and then another one, another one. It's funny that you mentioned also that this might be the easiest part, because a lot of the times I've heard it, none of the times I've conducted it, but a lot of times I heard it in concert. That's the part the pianist missed the most.
Absolutely.
I was going to say, you don't really want to mess up those chords.
Well, it's a D flat major. D flat 7. D flat augmented, because the fingers don't. Let's say you have your hands full, right, on that moment,
so to speak.
Yeah,
definitely.
But this is another one of those pieces that people found unplayable at the beginning. Like great concertos, they advance the technique, the cause, the musicality, the expression of the instrument. So, like the great composers, they do that, right? It's not easy, It pushes the boundaries of it, and then the instrument as one step higher on the technical wise. Expression wise, and this is definitely one of the war horses of all competitions, all pianists, still to this day, right? You have this, and you have Prokofiev 3, and that's pretty much and Rock 3.
Yep.
This is pretty much what people play in the finals. You rarely have a Beethoven 4, let's say, but which is incredibly beautiful, but just sheer difficulty. But what I found really interesting of this is who did the premiere. Because it's like nobody wants to play it. Rubinstein said, "No way, I'm playing this," and finally it was the conductor Hans von Bülow, who was the conductor who conducted all the Wagner music, and who was married with Cosima Liszt, which later became Cosima Wagner. But that's for another day. But
love triangles.
Love triangles in classical music, definitely one of our future episodes.
Can you even imagine the level of talent that was going on?
Yeah.
I mean, this conductor comes in and says, okay, I'll do it. And it's like, probably very young, right? But not that that much because it's not. He wasn't 20 years old and going like, "Oh, I'll do it." No, he was in his
40s?
prime. Yeah, he was in his prime. So it's like, wow, you really take a chance there,
Yeah.
So no, a lot of people saying, especially the person was dedicated to Rubinstein, not Anton.
Anton, not Arthur,
from the 19th century. And it's interesting because most concerti of that stature, the person it's written for, they don't want to play it. It always winds up being somebody else.
Yeah.
Because it's too much,
Yeah.
But he's stuck by his gun, and that's it.
Merwin, you're a violin player. What do you have to say about the piano concerto?
Well, it's actually really fascinating because the violins get to play one of the great melodies, and it reminds me a little bit of entering an amazing city. Like you have these gigantic gates, and then these gates open up. You have this gorgeous soaring melody, and then you're plunged into the life of the city, and you never see the gates again. And it's amazing to me that he gives the violins have just one chance to play this gorgeous melody. The pianist takes it once, and then it's one of the 10 best melodies in the literature, and we only get it the one time. It really stuns me that that's how he chose to do that concerto.
Kind of like the beginning of Beethoven's Fifth,
I'll argue with you about that. To me, it's the exact opposite of that, because you get if with Beethoven's Fifth, you get that opening, and then it never leaves. It's always there. You see it in everything, every single moment.
Did I say it was like it? I meant it was not like it. It was the opposite. Yeah,
exactly. But this is it's just so once you get in, it's an amazing city. Like, it's an amazing concerto. But I've always wondered why he never brought that melody back. So
yeah.
He was a master of making melodies. He was lousy at development. He would stitch together great melodies in all of his music, but it's one to the next. The seams are very visible.
Would write all kinds of possibilities and scratch it out until he found the perfect one. Yeah.
So this was this piece matters to me, and going back to Van Cliburn, because it was the first Toledo Symphony concert I ever saw. It was 1993, 50th anniversary celebration. Van Cliburn came back to play it.
Wow.
And my parents had the recording, of course, but that was the first LP I ever destroyed by playing it too much. And then I got another one, and I destroyed that one. And then I got it on compact disc, and my mind was blown that it could sound that good, because I was just used to degrading an LP version of this. And recently I reacquired it on vinyl, and
you've come full circle.
Yeah, I'm playing the heck out of it. But that was, for me, before I discovered Shostakovich as a mid-teenager. This was the great discovery as a teenager, was just to go on the adventure of the concerto. And it's a wild ride. There's so many wonderful things that happen in this piece that are just so immediately and immensely enjoyable.
Well, a lot of it depends, of course. I mean, it depends on the orchestra and conductor, but it depends on the pianist. And the pianist in question is making their debut, right, with Toledo Symphony. That is Jon Kimura Parker. Elaine, have you worked with him before?
I played Tchaikovsky with him.
Oh, okay. So this
many moons ago with the National Arts Centre Orchestra in Ottawa, in Canada. And we haven't played together for quite some time, and but we did Tchaikovsky together.
Well, he's from Canada, right?
Yeah, he's from Canada. Yeah. So and he's from a family of musicians, family of pianists. And I played with the other Parkers too. So they're quite famous. Well, they're famous around the world, but I'm very, very happy because he is an archetype Tchaikovsky concerto player. So it needs to be not hard for you to play those chords. It needs to be not hard for you to have volume and to have this virtuosity. Like it has to look and feel easy. So then you can really translate the message through it. If you're working, because it's really hard concerto. If you're really working on the technical passages, then people don't hear the melodies through the passage. So no, he's perfect for that.
That's great. Yeah. That sounds really interesting. Well, we're going to talk with him in a little bit. He's going to call in. But before we do that, I do have a quiz. If you guys want to do a quick little quiz.
Wait, we have a choice?
Yeah, well, no, you don't have a choice. You have a choice
None
at
of
any
the
time.
above.
This quiz is called Here's Jackie. And Jackie is, of course, the nickname of Jon Kimura Parker. He likes to be called Jackie Parker. So this is a quiz about famous Jackies. All right?
Oh.
Let me pull up some music for you. Okay. Question number 1, and I'll go through all of these and then we'll go back and answer them. In that 70s show TV series, who played the character of Jackie Burkhart? Was it Mila Kunis? Was it Laura Prepon or Topher Grace? Question number 2, what film did Jackie Chan star in with Chris Tucker? Was it Rush Hour, Lethal Weapon, or The Karate Kid? What was the name of Jackie Wilson's signature song? Higher and Higher, Lonely Teardrops, or Reet Petite? A, B, or C? In the Friends TV series, who is the character who is Chandler Bing's father? Was it Jackie Geller, Jackie Tribbiani, or Jackie Bing? If you watch a lot of TV, you do well on this quiz. Okay, now we're going to turn it over to Jackie Robinson. I've got a few different questions that are about Jackie Robinson. Who did he play for? Was it the New York Yankees, the Brooklyn Dodgers, or the Boston Red Sox? A, B, or C? What was Jackie Robinson's uniform number? Was it 34? Was it 42? Or was it 24? What was the name of Jackie Robinson's wife? Was it Rachel, Sarah, or Mary? And I should mention that she is alive at 100 years old.
Wow.
Still with us. And finally, what was Jackie Robinson's middle name? Was it Roosevelt, Kennedy, or Truman? A, B, or C? Okay, we ready to go back to the beginning?
Absolutely not.
Okay, well, we're going anyway. All right. Question 1, in that 70s show, Jackie Burkhart was played by A, Mila Kunis.
Yay.
Right? You all got that. Okay. Which
That's
film
a
did
surprising one for all of us to have got.
It's all downhill from here. Okay, what film did Jackie Chan star in with Chris Tucker? That would be A, again,
Yeah.
Rush Hour. Yeah, everybody got it. So far, you all are tied. What was the name of Jackie Wilson's signature song? It was C, Reet Petite. That's quite a voice. If you go back and listen to him, he's, from the same cloth that Elvis was from, that sort of thing. And they were good friends, as a matter of fact. But incredible voice on Jackie Wilson. That's my tidbit. Go on YouTube and listen to that voice. Amazing. Anyway, back to
Ellen,
the quiz.
did you get that one?
Of course not.
No.
So nobody got
Still
it.
tied.
We've had identical.
Yeah.
That's right.
Identical scores.
Yeah.
That's what I get for cheating off of Alain. He always has good scores.
Yeah. So in the Friends TV series, sorry, I'm going on with the quiz.
Yes,
You had more to say?
Yes, absolutely. Go on with the quiz.
In the Friends TV series, who is the character who is Chandler Bing's father? The answer was A, Jackie Geller. That was played by Elliot Gould, of all people. Yeah. So nobody got that? Wow, you're still tied. Okay, maybe Jackie Robinson can break the tie. What team did he play for? It was, of course, the Brooklyn Dodgers.
None of
B.
the above. Montreal. The Montreal Royals. That's where he started his career.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew that was going to come up. I knew it.
But I did you get that one?
Yeah.
We all got that one. Yeah,
Okay,
B.
so you're all still tied.
Yeah.
What was Jackie Robinson's uniform number? The answer was B42. Everybody get that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah? Oh, wow, we're still tied. Okay, maybe this will break it. What was the name of Jackie Robinson's wife?
Mrs. Robinson.
Here's to you. Okay. That would be Rachel. A
No.
was the answer. Rachel.
No.
Rachel Robinson, a professor and nurse. She's 100 years old now. She's going to be
Wow.
101 in July.
Amazing.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Here's to her. Yeah.
Absolutely. And finally, what was Jackie Robinson's middle name? It was A, Roosevelt. And he was named after President Roosevelt.
Yes.
President Theodore
That's right.
Roosevelt,
Yeah.
I should add.
You will need a tiebreaker.
Okay, well, the last two questions I'm not sure on. Who got the one about
we
his
had
wife?
identical scores.
Not me. I didn't get the last one. So it's you and Zach.
Well, still.
This is the point where if it's down to Merwin and me, I'm just going to quiver and dissolve into the corner here.
It's all good. We can rock, scissors, paper the thing in the parking lot. It's all.
Yeah,
Zach,
I should have brought in a tiebreaker question, but it's okay to have a tie.
I would call it a moral victory, Zach.
A moral victory.
The moral victory. The moral you know.
The moral, you know. Thank you. So Monty Python had a great thing about the Tchaikovsky concerto. Do you guys remember this?
No.
It was on Flying Circus, and it was Sviatoslav Richter playing the Tchaikovsky first piano concerto while escaping from a burlap bag, and it is one of the funniest
I could
things.
see Richter actually doing that
No,
himself.
but it was just like this little hilarious camera pitched from above. The whole video is about 40 seconds long, and it opens up with a serious announcer saying, "And now we shall listen to Sviatoslav Richter play the Tchaikovsky first piano concerto while escaping from a burlap sack." And it's, you hear the opening.
Can you guys do that for the concert with Jackie Parker?
You can that can
I'll
be
talk
my
to
question
him.
that
I'll
you can
ask
ask
him.
him. But just you hear the bam 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 bam, and then one hand gets free from the burlap bag and starts playing the octave. So anyway, just
It's like a Victor Borga thing.
it's worthwhile.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's go around the room because we're going to talk, or I'm going to talk with Jackie Kimura Parker. I almost said Jackie Robinson. I'm going to talk with Jackie Robinson because I'm going to talk with Jon Kimura Parker shortly. So I wanted to get your questions for Mr. Parker as we go along, and I think it'd be interesting to see how he answers those. So let's start with you, Merwin. We'll go around the room. What question do you have?
I'd love to ask him whether he plays any of the other Tchaikovsky piano concertos.
Oh, good question.
Yeah.
Because,
How many are there?
Depends on you count 3, but
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. What do you say, Elaine?
What is his favorite instrument? And the choices are trumpet or trombone.
These are strangely specific.
is this like Stephen Colbert is saying trombone is either a great instrument or the greatest instrument?
Okay. Which is better,
Yeah, right.
trumpet or trombone? All right. What do you say, Zach?
I always love asking this question of musical family members. A moment of chamber music that he might have played with his family. What sticks out as a memory?
Before I talk with Jon Kimura Parker, we'll turn the floor over to you, Merwin, because I know you want to talk a little bit more about Shostakovich.
Well, it's one of those things where it's kind of like the same thing with Beethoven's Fifth. It's almost not cool to say the Shostakovich Fifth is your favorite of his symphonies, because it certainly wasn't Shostakovich's favorite of his symphonies. But I mean, I think, and I used to keep trying to come up with other reasons why I loved other symphonies as much, but gosh darn it, the Fifth is my favorite. It's so much fun to play. It's so rewarding. It is so perfectly orchestrated, and he stretches the orchestra in just absolutely the perfect way. And I cannot wait to perform this in the hall, because it's interesting, Alain. You mentioned how the early Shostakovich in a way was maybe because it was unfiltered or it was kind of the most genuine Shostakovich. But for me, the most genuine Shostakovich is when he was torn, like between these different, like always having to answer to multiple masters, I think. And for me, this period of Shostakovich is him at his most Shostakovichian, I guess. And
True.
I mean, when I was doing summer festivals at the museum, the very first one I was doing all of the Shostakovich string quartets in a marathon.
Yeah.
And there's something about middle period Shostakovich, which is, I mean, it's just so incredibly satisfying to play. And I can't wait to share it.
Is there a symphony, is there a string quartet that aligns with this symphony for you? And where the symphony takes you, that quartet does too?
I think that what's very interesting is that this Fifth Symphony is almost operatic in that you're having, you almost see a hero going through something extraordinarily dramatic in real time. And I think I think the string quartets are almost more like song cycles. Mm-hmm. They're very intimate. They're almost more for the players than for the audience in some ways.
Oh, they're pretty good for the audience.
They're pretty good for the audience, I think. But in a way, I think that they're two sides of the same coin, I guess. Yeah. But the string quartets are very, very personal and maybe a little bit more raw, a little more vulnerable.
Got it. Got it. This has been the work that has been on almost every season that we've sketched out together. Yes. And you finally get to do it. What is your Shosti 5? Why is this so exciting for you to finally get to do it?
There are two things. Well, first of all, it's music that speaks to me, and I'm sure will speak to everybody in the audience. And also, it's hopefully speaks to everybody so that we can present more of his symphonies as we go along. Because it's a human experience, and I really think that the concert, the music in the concert, like the musical aspect, the notes, are a pretext for sharing a human experience. So that's what I'm all about, and it's very important for me to find works that translate that, and this is one of the works that translated the most.
So the concert is Friday and Saturday, April 14th and 15th at the Toledo Museum of Art, Peristyle, happening at 8:00 p.m. Music of Tchaikovsky as well as Shostakovich. We've been talking all about that, and we'll continue to talk about it in the near future. That concert conducted by Alain Trudel with piano soloist Jon Kimura Parker. So now I have the pleasure of talking with the pianist Jon Kimura Parker, who's joined me by phone to talk about his concert that we've been talking about today. It's music of Dimitri Shostakovich, but also Piotr Tchaikovsky's very first piano concerto, which we all know and all love. Jon will be here Friday and Saturday. It's April 14th and 15th at 8:00 p.m. at the Toledo Museum of Art, Peristyle. You can find more information at toledosymphony.com. Also call their box office if you prefer that. It is at 419-246-8000. Jon Kimura Parker, hello and welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you. We're looking forward to having you here in Toledo over the weekend. You're bringing with you that Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto No. 1, which Alain Trudel, the conductor, told me that you've done together before, a long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago in Canada, and I'm just so thrilled that we are going to be able to play together again. I mean, I'm super excited. It's to me, the Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto it's kind of a perfect piano concerto. It showcases the piano in the way that it should, with brilliant octave passages and cadenzas and all that fun stuff that you want to hear in a piano concerto, but it also showcases the orchestra, and there's beautiful melody that opens the second movement and other searing themes throughout. It's such a special piece of music, and you may know, and some of your listeners may know, that it just had the worst possible initial reception when Tchaikovsky played it through for a friend who basically said it was a disaster and it should never see the light of day.
Yeah.
And he did make a couple of revisions, which were good ones. But and this is also a piece that, in a certain sense, has become. It's become a piece that's very much associated with symphonic repertoire and symphonic playing, specifically in the United States. I mean, this piece actually had its world premiere in Boston.
Yeah.
So You know, to me, it's just such stunning music.
Well, that grand opening is familiar to folks when they hear it. The piano playing the chords, the arpeggios over the orchestra, which has this kind of sweeping melody. Tchaikovsky was certainly a melodist, you know, as far as composers go. But I mentioned that, you know, that seemed a pretty simple thing to do, a pretty simple entrance for the piano. And Alain Trudel pointed out that the only time that he's heard pianists mess up is during those first chords. I'm wondering what is your inspiration, or what has your experience been with playing this concerto? I mean, what part do you have to watch out for while you're performing it?
Well, actually, a lot of different kinds of things are really critically important, including the ability to accompany the orchestra while playing theoretically louder. You know, we think of accompanying as something that's done fairly quietly and to try to not to be in the way, but that opening is a classic example. It's like the world's loudest accompaniment, right? I mean, you know, the orchestra's got the tune. And what's great about those chords is basically what Tchaikovsky's doing is letting the pianist showcase the range of the piano immediately. You know, so after we hear the horns in the opening, when the piano comes in, I play almost the lowest possible octave in the first chord, and then in the third chord, I'm playing the highest possible octave on the piano, and it continues throughout. So it's really showing the range of the instrument. The next thing that happens is he immediately has the orchestra stop, and the pianist goes into a solo cadenza. And to have that cadenza so early, I mean, there's another longer traditional placement cadenza near the end of the first movement, but to have this so early really just establishes the sort of heroic element of the piano soloist versus orchestra. You know, I once made a recording, a PDQ Bach recording, and it was called Two Pianos versus Orchestra.
Yeah, I've played it on the radio, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, sometimes a piano concerto is meant to have that kind of quality. I think of the sort of virtuoso concerto as we have so many from Germanic composers and Russian composers, and I often think of that kind of writing as a little bit like a feature film, you know, like or like specifically like an action film, you know, because if you go to an action movie, there's hopefully a reasonably believable plot going on, but then all of a sudden everything grinds to a standstill while there's a car chase or something, right? And it's a little bit like that in concerto sometimes. You know, this cadenza will just happen, and it's brilliant and showy, may or may not be advancing the musical plot, but it's a lot of fun to watch and listen to.
I asked our panel to provide 3 different questions, 1 question each, that they were interested in having you answer. And the first one that I want to talk about came from Morwen Siu, who is principal second violin. He's also the artistic administrator, so he may have been, you know, in contact with you about this concert. But his question was if you play any of the other piano concertos by Tchaikovsky.
I do not. There is a very substantial Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto No. 2. When people see Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto on a program, they know what they're getting. And then if somebody shows up and plays No. 2, then they realize that they were wrong, and it's always a little disappointing. And I've never been one to want to disappoint anybody. So the second concerto is also a massive work, and has glorious music in it. But I've just never quite been as fond of it, and it's just never entered my repertoire. And there are a few other shorter things, and I don't play those either. Honestly, for the, I don't know, couple of hundred times maybe that I've played the Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto, there's very little else of Tchaikovsky in my repertoire except for the trio, the piano, violin, and cello trio, which is another, you know, absolutely enormous work. But I don't play any of the solo pieces or anything like that. I just love listening to Tchaikovsky. I love the symphonies. I love the ballet music. It's you know, magical.
Yeah, and a lot of it has been transported to piano or piano duo, what have you. I know that Tchaikovsky made some of his own transcriptions of some of his works for piano as well.
Oh, yeah, and there's some very effective ones, yeah.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself. You grew up in a classical music family. you were exposed to it at a very early age.
There was an upright piano in the house. My mom, who's Japanese, was an active piano teacher at that time, and I just grew up listening to the piano. But the moment that my parents thought I might have musical talent specifically was when I was 3, and there was a radio show that they listened to every day of the week on CBC radio. And one day I walked up to the upright piano and started with one finger poking out the theme music from the show. And so they thought, oh, well, he's pretty clearly got an ear.
Yeah.
Let's start piano lessons, And I just took to it so, I remember in first grade, the teacher asking everybody what they wanted to be when they grew up, and it was, for the boys in my class, it was about half and half between a hockey player or a fireman. And I said, I'm going to be a concert pianist. And, I was clear. I was 100%. There was no debate. And I just kept pursuing that growing up. And I was very lucky to grow up in a musical environment, both in terms of my family, but also the city of Vancouver has always been a strong musical city. I had fantastic teachers and just really great training all the way through. So, but I just never stopped having that feeling. Like, I just loved to play the piano and loved to make music. And in high school, when, for me, I was socially awkward in high school, and then I, started listening to rock and roll. And I realized that I could sit down at the piano and play Benny and the Jets, or I could play anything of Elton John or Billy Joel or what have you, and that was my sort of entree to meeting people, So I could sit down at the upright in the school cafeteria and start pounding out rock and roll, and I love that too. And I played a lot of jazz as a kind of a hobby, but it's just music. I mean, music is so. It's so important for all of us as a part of the human condition, and such a natural part of all of us. I mean, we have the capacity to sing, and that's just always meant more to me than anything.
Yeah. Now, you grew up with other pianists in your family, right? I mean, you're
Yeah. My brother Jamie, I go by Jackie as a nickname, but I'm officially John, and my brother Jamie is a pianist who is in the Griffin Trio. He's also the chair of the piano department at the University of Toronto. And we have a sister, Liz, who studied the piano and still teaches piano. We have a cousin, Ian, who is a concert pianist. Wow. And so there's a ton of piano.
A lot of pianos there. Did you all play duets or chamber music together growing up?
We actually played a lot together, and Jamie and me, who are the closest in age, would accompany each other, practicing concertos. One of us would play the orchestral reduction on the second piano. And we did a lot of that.
Yeah, that was one of the questions that Zach Vassar wanted to know, if you had that experience. It sounds like a great way to grow up, being a classical music fan myself. That's wonderful. Yeah. The final question came from the conductor, Alain Trudel, and, kind of tongue-in-cheek, but he was asking if you had to choose between the trumpet and the trombone, which instrument do you prefer?
Oh, gee, that's not even remotely a loaded question, is it? That's coming from such a great trombone player.
Exactly.
Actually, the fact is, and I may not have told Alain this the last time that we worked together, but I actually played trombone in my high school band.
Oh.
Very, very badly. And however, I was the only one in the trombone section who could read music. So the rest of them were just completely faking it. So I if I would push out the slide, they would all do the same, even if they had different parts. They just thought it looked better, And I mean, it was a horrible band. But I have trombone experience, and I definitely prefer that voice. If I were to try to play either instrument, I think the trumpet would be just about impossible for me. But the trombone, I could probably, with a little practice, still manage to make a sound, as displeasing as it was, 45 years ago.
We're not going to hear you play the trombone, unfortunately.
I sure hope not. You definitely don't want to.
Jon Kimura Parker is my guest today on Toledo Symphony Lab. He is a wonderful pianist, and you have a chance to see him in person, live. That's happening this Friday and Saturday, April 14th and 15th. The Piano Concerto No. 1 of Piotr Tchaikovsky. It's at the Toledo Museum of Art, Peristyle, 8 o'clock p.m. both nights. And you can find more information at toledosymphony.com or 419-246-8000. Jon Kimura Parker, if folks want to find more information about you, you have an online presence?
I do, in several places, but Jon, spelled Jon, Kimura, Kimura, Parker.com. And that has my concert schedule and all sorts of other fun stuff.
Great.
And I will say one last thing, that if anybody's listening right now and they're thinking, I just don't know, I haven't been to a symphony concert in a long time, and do I need to put on a suit? And I would just say, come to this concert because it will just blow your mind. I mean, the Tchaikovsky is an iconic and exciting piano concerto, but the Shostakovich also, what a colorful, incredibly powerful piece of orchestral music. I mean, really showing off the whole symphony. So this is a win-win concert.
Absolutely. Jon Kimura Parker, thank you so much for talking with us today. We look forward to having you here in Toledo.
Thanks so much.
This program is a production of WGTE Public Media in collaboration with our sponsor, the Toledo Symphony, with generous support from the Rita Barber Kern Foundation. You can download episodes of this program as a podcast by going to our website at wgte.org/lab. You can also subscribe to us through your podcast app of choice, including Apple, Google, and Spotify podcasts. And don't forget to check out all the upcoming events at the Symphony by visiting their website at toledosymphony.com and their various social media outlets on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can find the TSO streaming platform online at stream.artstoledo.com. My thanks to Zach Vassar, Elaine Trudell, Merwin Sue, and our special guest by phone, Jon Kimura Parker. I'm Brad Cresswell. This has been Toledo Symphony Lab from FM 91.